All right, let's jump right in. We're going to explore one of the biggest, most fundamental questions in business today. What is a company actually for? Is it all about making money, or is there something more to it?
It sounds like a simple question, right? But believe me, it has sparked decades of really intense debate. And the answers, well, they're not just for textbooks. They literally shape our entire society, from the things we buy, to the jobs we have, to the kind of world we live in.
You know, for the longest time, this whole debate was basically a tug of war between two big ideas. On one side, you have the incredibly influential economist Milton Friedman, who famously said a company's one and only job is to make as much money as possible for its owners. But on the other side, there's this growing chorus of voices saying, hold on, businesses need to step up and help solve some of the world's biggest problems.
So, to really get a feel for this tension, let's start with Friedman's point of view. It's an idea that truly shaped a whole generation of business leaders, and frankly, it still holds a lot of weight today.
This quote just nails the heart of Friedman's argument. I mean, think about it like this. Let's say you're an entrepreneur. You've poured your blood, sweat, and tears into building a company. Then one day, your manager decides to give away 90% of your profits to a social cause. You'd probably be furious, right? It's your money, and your manager's primary duty is to you, the owner.
But things are definitely changing. So what's driving that shift? Well, a huge part of it is that as our faith in other institutions has kind of gone down, society is looking at these incredibly successful, powerful companies and saying, hey, you guys need to do more. You need to step in and help. There's this massive expectation now for business to fill that void.
And all this pressure has led to a really interesting, more sophisticated idea called creating shared value. Now, this isn't just about writing a check to charity. It's a strategic way of thinking. It says that by investing in society, by building up communities, improving your supply chain, supporting education, companies can actually get better, more sustainable results for their shareholders in the long run. It's framed as a total win-win.
Okay, so this all sounds great, but it brings up another really thorny question. If a business just follows all the rules, follows all the laws, is that enough? Can we call it a good company just because it's law-abiding? To see what I mean, we're going to look at a pretty shocking example from history that just perfectly highlights the massive, massive gap between what's legal and what's actually ethical. So back in the 19th century, it was completely legal for the British Empire to basically act like a state-sponsored drug cartel. They grew opium, they shipped it to China, and they got a huge portion of the population addicted, all to fix a trade imbalance. They even fought wars to protect this business. Now today, we look back on that and see it for what it was, absolutely indefensible. And that's the point, right? Laws are the floor, not the ceiling. They change over time. Real leadership means you have to operate from a set of values that goes way deeper than just what the law allows today.
Okay, so if the law isn't enough to guide us, then what is? Whose ethics should a leader be following? This leads us to a fascinating idea about a kind of universal ethical compass. I mean, it's a huge question, isn't it? But a social psychologist named Jonathan Haidt has a really compelling answer. He argues that, deep down, human morality isn't just random. It's actually built on a few core hardwired foundations that we all share.
He calls these the building blocks of our moral sense. Things like the instinct to care for others and to stop them from being harmed. That deep-seated demand for fairness and justice when someone cheats. The powerful pull of loyalty to our team, our group, a respect for legitimate authority, and even a sense of purity or sanctity. We all have these instincts. We just might prioritize them a little differently.
Now, this is where it gets really, really cool and super practical. When you take these moral foundations and you combine them with the different groups a business has to think about, itself, its shareholders, and society at large, you get this incredibly powerful tool. It's like an ethical matrix that helps you see the hidden trade-offs behind any big business decision.
And that right there is the key word we need to focus on: trade-offs. Because pretty much every single decision a leader makes involves them. It often means pitting one of these core values directly against another. Let's look at a really clear example.
This quote, which is totally satirical, of course, points to a very, very real ethical mess. The cigarette industry creates a ton of value for its shareholders, and it generates massive tax revenues for governments, which you could argue is value for society. But it does all of that by directly and knowingly violating that most basic ethical foundation: care versus harm. And this is such a stark example of the kind of trade-offs we make all the time. As a society, we often implicitly decide that creating economic value is more important,
even when it comes at a huge human cost. The point here isn't to judge, but to realize that leaders have to be consciously aware of the choices and the compromises they're actually making.
And having that awareness is, it's absolutely crucial because it helps us answer one of the most troubling and difficult questions in the business world.
You know, when you look at these big corporate scandals, the people at the center of them are almost never these evil, mustache-twirling villains. They're usually ordinary people, people just like you and me, who somehow ended up doing things they never thought they would. So, how does that happen?
Well, the way it happens so often is through something called incrementalism. It's that classic slippery slope. It starts with just one small, tiny compromise that seems justifiable to hit a goal, a minor trade-off. But then you do it again and again. And each little step makes the next one feel easier. And before you even realize it, you've crossed lines you swore to yourself you never, ever would.
So what's the antidote? How do you stop yourself from sliding down that slope? It really just comes down to constant, personal vigilance. It means having the self-awareness to step back every so often and ask yourself, can I look in the mirror and honestly defend the trade-offs I'm making right now?
And look, this isn't some high-level question just for CEOs of massive companies. This applies to every single one of us, in our jobs and in our personal lives. So I'll just leave you with that to think about. In your work, in your life, what are the trade-offs you're making? And are you really okay with them?